So let's go to screening. Choose shares. Choose open shares. Okay. Select companies in the same economic sector. So we are going to need to identify the economic sector of the company. We're going to create a new column. Click on that column. Choose general information. In the middle column, choose shares for Mexico. And economic sector for Economatica. That should be okay. Click OK. And we just added a new column, which is the economic sector of the company. Is that right? Did you manage? No? You want me to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay. So click on create column. Choose general information. In the middle column, choose shares with the flag of Mexico. And then choose sector económico. Click on OK. Okay. Okay, let's say we want to use some real estate we have as an Airbnb. We want to make some analysis for that business. So which would the closest economic sector in Economatica or in the Mexican Stock Exchange be? If it is not detailed enough, then we create another column to add the nights economic sector, which is more disaggregated. So which would the economic sector of an Airbnb business be?
Services.
Services. Okay. So we have anything more specific? If not, then we have to choose the night's classification, which is more disaggregated. So in the services sector, what type of service could this business provide? Because teaching is a service, haircutting is a service. So what type of service is Airbnb?
Accommodation.
Mm-hmm. Accommodation, yeah. Mm-hmm. What type of companies in that service do you think we can find in the Mexican Stock Exchange? Hotels. Mm-hmm. Do we have any way of identifying hotels? Or do we need to add another industry classification?
Maybe tourism.
Tourism? Is it in the Economatica sector disaggregation? No. Okay. So let's create. So that means we need to search in a more disaggregated economic sector classification. We're going to use nights. Okay. Okay. So let's create a column. Once more, general information, Mexican stock. But now let's choose sector nights. Okay, click on OK. Let's filter the companies we have. So go to the black bar at the top. The first icon is like a filter. Click on that. Let's add one more filter. Click on the arrow. Choose sector nights. Click OK. we're going to choose among the among the cyan classification, something that has to do with hotels. So click on the sign with in the plus signal so that we can see if we can find hotels.
Teacher, would it be 72?
72? Yeah. Hmm? Which one?
72 one?
Temporary accommodation, right? So let's click 7.21 first. Okay. So the sample is going to be reduced to the companies that fill that requirement. Click on OK. See Mega Resort, Fibra Hotel, Hotel City Express, Grupo Posadas. All right, we have a good sample. Okay, excellent. That's the sample of companies, of comparable companies to this target business that we have in mind. Okay, Airbnb. Let's open another window. Now we need information.
Pretty quick to open.
Click on the plus icon in the black bar on the left.
Okay.
Okay, let me take out my pen. So what information do we need to calculate betas for those companies? Which information do we need? I want to estimate the equity beta for Seed Mega Resort, for Fibra Hotel, for City Express, for Posadas. What, sorry? Their risk-free rate. Okay, what else?
The
capital structure. Can anyone remind me? How can we estimate betas? How do we estimate beta? How do we calculate it? Is there any equation?
The covariance.
The beta for a company equals the covariance
Between the asset for buy and the market divided by variance of the market.
Where does the risk-free rate of the capital structure come into place here? Where does the risk-free rate of the capital structure come into place in my beta equation? Why do I need them? Why? I ask you, what information do we need? Risk-free rate, capital structure. Okay, that's the equation for beta. What am I going to do with the risk-free rate? What am I going to do with the capital structure?
Then the return. Then the risk premium.
Do I need that for betas?
No.
Right? For betas, I don't need that. So what information do we need to estimate Seed Mega Resort beta?
The market and the asset by or correlation dividing risk of the risk of the assets and the market.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. We have economatica. We have an idea of what type of information we have in economatica, don't we?
Yes.
What information can we find in economatica?
We can find every like financial statement
Mhm.
of companies and information about their stock. So maybe what we can do is, I don't know if there's indicators there, but maybe we can use the IPC
Okay,
And for these companies, we can use its lower price this year and its top price this year to get the variance somehow, like the stock information to get the variance.
mhm,
And with the IPC, we can do the same to get the variance, and the IPC variance will be the stock, market, market variance.
mhm, yeah. Oh, very
And the
good.
other ones will be each instrument, each stock variance, and then we can get the variance easy.
Okay. So what information am I going to download from Economatica to estimate balance? Because will Economatica give me the variance of the asset, the variance of the market? Is that something I can download?
The closing prices of each day in the last year.
I need closing prices. Right?
Yes.
What will I do with the closing prices? I download prices and then
Estimate the variation
estimate the deviation
of the asset. The target price.
The prices,
the standard deviation of the price. Is that what I need? With the closing prices, I will estimate returns. With the returns, then I can estimate standard deviations. Standard deviation is risk. The square of the standard deviation is the variance, right? The covariance between the stock and the market equals the correlation coefficient between the stock and the market times their standard deviation divided by the variance of the market, right? So beta is the ratio of the risk of the assets to the market risk times the correlation coefficient of the asset and the market. Is that right? Yes. And this happens to be also the coefficient, the sensitivity of the stock return to the market if I regress linearly the return of the assets towards the market. So this coefficient is this, isn't it? So I run a regression, I get the time series of returns and I run a regression. I get the time series of returns and I run the equation. I should get exactly the same betas. Right? Is that correct? That's what we will do. We will prove that by regressing the stock returns versus the market, that coefficient from the linear regression is exactly the calculation of beta. The sensitivity of the stock return to the market return, assuming there is a linear relationship between the stock return and the market return. Because if the relationship is not linear, then beta is not that. Is that right? Am I correct? Okay. Is that clear? Clearer? No? Yes. Okay. So we will do this. But before that, let's say, because this is something you will do for your final project, we want to double check how similar, how comparable these companies are. Because we got 4 today, but probably in your real life exercise, in your project, you will get 20 companies. And they may be very different from each other. And you want to choose a closer sample. Okay? We chose first companies that operate in the same economic sector. But we would like to try, that's something you would like to do, that you should do. You should try the other factors. Is the profitability similar? Is the revenue growth rate similar? Okay. Economatica cannot give us the geography of the company. That's something we have to search for. Okay, what are the probably we have to go to the web page of the company, see where they sell their products and services. Okay. The size, we can find size either with market capitalization or total assets. That's how we measure the size of a company. So we will download for these 4 companies, total assets, market capitalization, total sales, annual sales, and operating profitability in a database. And we will check how close they are, how similar they are. Okay, exactly what I'm saying? Right?
Yes.
You're like a little bit sleepy today. Okay, so let's open a new window. Plus sign icon. This time we're going to choose matrix. Let's create a column. Where will we find, what was the first one? Size, market capitalization. Where do I find the market capitalization for a company in Economatica? What is market capitalization? Anyone can remind us? What is market capitalization? What is it?
The price of the shares times the.
That's correct. The price of a share times the number of outstanding shares. So in other words, the market value of the equity of the firm. Okay? Very good. So where do I find that? Datos generales, reportes financieros, cotizaciones, múltiplos.
Closing prices.
No, market capitalization. Cotizaciones.
Maybe acciones.
Maybe here.
Yes, acciones and.
We have the closing prices, but we don't have the market capitalization.
I would use the number.
But since we are already there, let's choose the closing price because we're going to need it anyway, right? Remember? Let's choose closing prices. I'm gonna do. So let's add our companies. We already have a screening window. So let's choose all the items in the screening window. Have 4 companies. So there they are. Let's select them by clicking on the double arrow here. So you will see that the names go to the right. So we have selected the 4 companies.
We didn't use base 100, right?
Base 100, no. I think so. No. And screening. Click on OK. We have the 4 companies, and we will get the closing price for those. Okay. We usually do not estimate betas with daily observation. We usually estimate betas with either monthly observations or yearly. Okay. I'm going to change the parameters there. So instead of having daily observations here, in the 3rd icon on the right corner, let's choose years instead of days. So diverse parameters. In the period, choose years. Let's see. We have information as from 2014. Should be okay. Okay. Did everyone manage?
No.
No?
Repeat
Yes, we need from scratch. So let's choose a matrix window, create column. Let's choose quotes, cotizaciones. And you can leave the middle column as it is. Just make sure you double click on closing price. So you should see that the parameter you chose has been selected and highlighted on the left, okay? Instead of choosing the current items that we have in Economatica, let's choose add. Okay. Choose show all the items in screening. And then double clicking the double arrow to the right. So we select them. Deselect, eliminate the current asset. We don't want it. Okay. Now let's change the parameters on the top right corner. The first option, universal parameters. In the period section, choose years. We could choose months, but this time we're going to choose years. Okay? And now we have a database of closing prices for the 4 comparable companies in yearly basis, on a yearly basis. Correct? I'm not quite sure, but let me see if I can add in the same matrix, revenues, profits. What was the other thing we wanted? Market capitalization. Let me see. Market capitalization should be in the multiple section. And should be a market indicator because it's a market value. Okay. So indicadores de mercado. Then I'm going to choose industrial and commercial companies in Mexico. And you see capitalización bursátil. Did you find it? We go back. To create column. In the multiple section, choose indicadores de mercado, market indicators. In the middle section, choose industrial and commercial Mexico. Then on the right, choose capitaliz bursátil. That's market capitalization. Okay? Found it?
Yes.
We can okay. Let me do the same thing. Deselect the current and add the items in this screen. Oh, great, excellent. Yeah. Since we already had yearly basis, we got the market capitalization for the 4 companies on a yearly basis. Added to the database. Okay. So far, so good? Yeah, but years. Because I added market capitalization to the matrix we already had, it's gonna add it on a yearly basis because that's the parameter that I was using. Okay. So that was market capitalization, which is size. Let's go for revenues. That's going to be sales. So create column. Where do I find sales? That's right. Financiero, financial statements. Choose industrial and commercial. More. So look for total sales. Estado de resultados, ingresos netos. That's total revenues. Okay. Estado de resultados, ingresos netos. Choose the 4 companies in the screening once more.
We choose all the ingresos netos, right?
Right. Then we have net sales for the 4 companies as well.
You start in
So. I'm gonna do it in a new matrix so that I don't mix it with this, okay? So, in order to download sales, click on financial statements. Choose industrial and commercial companies in Mexico, and on the right column, look for income statements, dollars, and choose ingresos netos. In the companies, deselect, delete the current company and add the 4 companies we have in the screening window. Right? Yes? Show items from screening. Click on the double arrow to the right. Click on OK. OK once more. And it will be added to your annual database. Okay? So we should have closing prices. We should have market capitalization, revenues. So we have size, we have sales, we need profitability. What type of indicator do we need? Operating profit, which is called in English how? What's the acronym we use for that? EBIT. Excellent. Great. So create a column. Where do I find operating profit? Where do I find EBIT? Reportes financieros. It's a financial ratio. It's not an item in the financial statements.
Indicadores
Financieros. Let's see. National and commercial. We have it.
fraction or given for that.
Pardon me. Say it again.
There is a beta fraction.
No, but EBITDA is not operating profit. Remember, EBITDA is not operating profit. It's EBIT. We have it as a ratio if we want it. Did you see it? Yes, exactly. We have margin, EBIT. Utilidad operativa as a margin, operating margin. That's enough. That's good for us. We just want to compare. Okay. So let's choose that one. We have to select the 4 companies every time we create a new variable. Okay. So we have EBIT, operating profit. They are not that similar. So what else are we missing? So we have size. We have sales. We have to calculate the growth rate. We have profitability. Oh, capital structure. We can look for the capital structure of the firm. Where do I find capital structure? What do you think? What is the ratio most commonly used to represent the capital structure of a firm? What is the ratio? Debt to equity ratio. So that's a financial ratio. It should be in the multiples section. What type of multiple is it to equity? Is it is it a financial ratio? Is it a market ratio? Technical indicator? Should be a financial ratio, that's right. So let's choose indicadores financieros, industrial and commercial companies. We have capital structure ratios, in fact. So which one would that be?
And then we also
Which ones? Say it again. Why the gross debt and not the net debt?
because
Why would you choose gross instead of net?
the net is
Without taxes on rent?
No, net debt is, that doesn't have to do with taxes. What is net debt? You already know, you know. Try to remember. What is net debt?
Oh, because it use cash.
Net debt equals debt, gross debt, minus cash. Doesn't have to do with taxes, okay?
Yeah.
That's the only difference. You could use either. Although we would normally go for the net debt indicator. Because that would be a more realistic representation of the risk of the company. But depending on the use we're gonna give, sometimes we need gross debt. So it depends on what we need, okay? In this case, we just want the same scale to compare companies in terms of risk, right? So we could choose either. Let's choose net debt, okay? Exchange for the four companies in the screening. You could download both.
Which one do you choose?
Net debt over net equity. La deuda neta entre patrimonio neto. Remember that for economática, patrimonio is equity. Okay?
Is it why you choose a bit that?
Did I?
Yes. Over the.
Oh. Sorry.
That is.
Indicadores financieros. Debt net over net equity. Yeah. Now it's true. Okay, let's export the database to Excel. All the variables are in the units we need except for revenues. So for revenues, we need the growth rate. How do we estimate that? When I insert all columns here, sorry? What we have is net sales. But what we do want is growth of sales. The growth rate of sales. How do we estimate that? Do you understand my question? The previous year,
Minus the 1 year before, divided by the year before.
and why don't we use the current year? Why the previous one?
Okay, and
The current
minus
the previous, right?
Divided by the total. Thank you.
So the current year over the previous one, minus one. Of course, we're gonna lose one observation.
How many columns you start?
I added 4. Or one for each company.
Ah, okay.
This is the growth rate of sales. Did you get the same numbers? On the line for 2023, I'm gonna delete it because it's not the full year. So it just makes me confused.
What do you mean?
2023, because it's not the full year. It's not comparable. So for Sidmega Resort, revenues grew 33% between 2022 and 2021. 50% for hotels, 39% for City Express, and 22% for Posada. Is that right? It's huge. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So in terms of sales growth, it is hotel, the one that doesn't seem to be quite close, right? So let's have a look at the.
Can I see how you wrote the formula? Because I don't get the same. So,
The current year over the previous one, -1. Yeah. So it's the current minus the previous divided by the previous times 100, right? The same.
finance usually use programmation languages.
Yes. Yeah, because we need to work with a lot of numbers.
What is the most common language? It's
Macros in Excel, I use them. But I heard Python is also part of use.
someone was telling me that the new version of Excel have Python incorporated. Oh, that's
Great. Yeah, that's it. Okay, what do you manage?
Yes.
Okay. So how similar are these companies? So for example, this is the stock price that you cannot reduce. You cannot see. This is what you have to do to choose your comparable company. Okay, that's why we are doing this today. So in terms of market capitalization, There seem to be three similar companies and one that is out of range, isn't it? So in terms of size, Siga, Sid Mega Resorts, Hotel and City Express are close, right? The Grupo Posadas is a lot larger. Right? Do you agree? Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah? Now, in terms of growth in sales, it is hotel, one that seems to be growing faster. Okay. In terms of gross margin, well, operating margin, sorry, not gross. In terms of operating margin, you only need an average. So for example, I'm going to take the average of the last 5 years. Eighteen to 22. So this is the average growth rate of revenues. And we can see that probably this time City Express is not as comparable as the other three. Okay. In terms of usage of debt, I'm going to make the average well for the last 5 years. The last line, the line that I am highlighting is the average of the past 5 years. Grupo Posadas is absolutely out of the example. By looking at the different factors, we could add more and more factors to see how different or how similar they are. You may end up with a closer sample of comparable companies. That's the idea. You first look at the universe of companies. Then you select them by sector, by economic sector. And then you look at the different ratios, financial information, and other information like the geography to see which of those companies in your sample deserve to be called comparable companies. Once you end up with your sample of comparable companies, then we start with the analysis of data. All right? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
What's the difference for the average?
The average of the 5 last years. Yeah. The average of year 2018 to 2022. Just a simple average. Yes?
You know, it's how comparable or is there a problem for about the COVID? Like
A problem about what, sorry?
about COVID that like the money that can be comparable are not because of the pandemic.
But if they sell the same services and products, or very similar, they operate in the same industry, why would they be hit differently? For example?
And one company like the strategy they have and how they operate, maybe they operate in profit for one company is really bad because they didn't pay so well then.
But what was the reason why one did well and the other didn't? That's what you have to look for. That is the difference you care about. You don't care about much about the difference in the percentage. You care about the difference in the business risk of the company. We're trying by looking at the comparable companies, we're trying to identify companies with similar business risk, regardless of the results. Right? We're trying to look for companies that are affected in similar way by similar factors because they share the business risk, because they share the business they are in. One or some will do better than other. That's inevitable, inevitable, right? That we cannot avoid that, right? We have to look for, that's why we are going to make an average. Because those who did better than the other will be compensated in the average. And the average is the one that we will use. We will use the average risk of the industry, right? So the aim is to build an average asset beta for the industry. By looking at the comparable companies, we will build an average equity beta and therefore an average asset beta. With the average asset beta, with the asset beta of the industry, then we can assess any company in the industry, provided we have the information for the specific companies. Right? Without information, we cannot do anything. Okay, if it was me, if it was my decision, I would leave Posadas aside and I would stay with the first three companies in my sample of compounded firms. That would be my decision. Right?
Why?
Because in more than one indicator, it is out of the average, absolutely out of the average. Size, capital structure. So it's not, it's a company operating in the same industry, but at a different scale. Yes.
So it's like if you want to make an analysis between like the normal companies in an industry and not an company.
For example, for Coca-Cola, you will have to add Pepsi. Yeah, I mean, Coca-Cola has at least two other competitors, big competitors. So you would at least have three. But this is something important. In a sample of comparable companies, we want to have at least three. If we only have one comparable company, we don't have a sample of companies in the industry. Maybe the company we want to assess has only one competitor. Maybe there is only one company in that industry, right? But then we don't need comparable. We don't need this method. That's not my point. We don't need the pure play method. We don't need to find comparable companies if you try to enter a monopolistic center, right? There's nothing, there's no competition, right? This is not the analysis we need. But in an industry where there are more than two players, then we need this type of analysis. We need to understand the average of the industry. And then we'll make industry with 10 companies of good size that we can compare. Okay, but at least 3 companies. So if we don't find 3 companies in Mexico, then we have to open the sample to Latin America, United States, Europe, Asia. All right, is that clear what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the more companies we can have, we share the information we have to work.
Here, how do you reach the column and the
Okay. So just place in the cell that you want to use as a division, and then go to Vista, choose DVD. There it is. You can move upward, backward, you like. So you have this fixed the upper cells and the cells in the middle. Sometimes it's difficult. Okay, so is it clear what we have to do to find a sample of comparable companies? Slightly? Yes? Okay. So let's go back to Economatica. Now, we're going to download for the 4 companies. We already have it, but let's do it again because it's going to be simpler, more simple. let's download closing prices of the 4 companies in the accommodation industry and the market. So we need 5 time series of closing prices, okay? So let's open a new matrix, please. So create a column. Where do we find the closing prices? Can you repeat me? Can you remind me? Where do we find closing prices? Correct. Posiciones. So we choose closing, right? Let's delete the current asset and add the 4 assets in the screening. Let's add. So once you have chosen the 4 companies in the accommodation industry, let's type IPYC. So let's add the market to our sample this time. Yes, IPYC. Índice de psicoaplicaciones. Double click on the left, on the name, so that you can add it to your sample. So you should have 5 assets on the right column. Is that right? Guys? So, okay. Okay, once more. Let's change the periodicity for annual observations. Choose the 3rd icon. Diversos parámetros. Choose years. And export the database to Excel.
It's here.
Can I repeat it?
Yes. Can you change the periodicity here?
Yes. So matrix, I'm going to repeat everything. Create column, choose these acciones on the right cierre, which is closing price, double click. In the asset associated, let's delete the current and add items in the screening, choose double arrow, and then type in the space you have, IPYC. Double click in the name or just single arrow. So make sure you have 5 assets on the right column. Once you have it, click on OK. And after that, click OK once more.
Teacher, what type? IPC?
IPYC.
IPC.
If you type IPC, it will take you to the Índice Nacional de Precios de Consumidor. You know what? And export it. Yes. We should have this. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a balanced database since year 2014. We will work with those years only.
It will be acciones y otros, right? Or principales items.
Any of the 2 will work. I usually use principals. So does everyone have a database of closing prices? Everyone? Are we ready? Okay. So let's estimate annual returns. How do I estimate the annual return for let me 5 days? So this is Steve Miller.
Yes.
You and the hotel, the institute spreads, and then the balance, then wages. So how do I get the annual return for 6 mega resorts? What do I do? Oh, what is the return? What was the return for the share of Sid Mega Resort in 2015 for that? What was the annual return for that investment?
2000, what?
15.
It would be 2015 prime,
Okay,
minus 2014 price. Everything divided between the 2014 price
divided by, Mauricio.
by
That's it, right? That would be in decimal terms. 58%. Wow. And then I will copy the formula for the rest of the years and then to the right for the other assets, right? Just to make sure we have the same information, I'm going to make the simple mean. That number will tell us that we have exactly the same information. So we have a time series of how many years of returns? How many years are we analyzing? 9, right? For the past 9 years, the average return for the year of mega reserve has generated a return of 3.9% per year. On the contrary, hotel has had a loss of 3.5% per year. City Express, a loss of 4.9%. Posadas, a profit of 4.1%. While the market has generated a 2.6% return per year in the past 9 years. How about that?
Do we leave it very, very quick?
Pardon me?
The year 2023, do we leave it? there?
No, we, I did, right? I didn't delete it. I should have deleted it. No, let's delete that. Yeah, you are right. So forget everything I said. No, they are close, except for Posadas, whose profit has been higher, 6.1. So in the past 8 years, complete calendar years, the Mexican stock market has yielded a 2% return. In the past 8 years, the inflation has been about 5% per year. Wonderful, isn't it? Appalling, terrible. Okay. Do we have the same information? I just deleted the line for year 2023. Why? Because it is not a complete year, so it's not comparable with the other years. So this is the average for the period 2014-2022. 8 complete calendar years. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's calculate betas first through the equation using variances and covariances, and then with a regression analysis. Okay. So I'm going to need variances. And covariance. I'm gonna do it the other way around. First the covariance of what? Of the asset, the stock, and the market, okay? Then the covariance or the variance of each asset. Is that clear? So Excel has a function called covar, which is the covariance. We have a sample. Let's start with the covariance of the sample of the 8 years for mega research. And the market. Okay. Yes, right? The covariance between mega and the market. I'm going to fix the cell for the market because I always want to compare the asset itself with the market. That I can copy. I don't need the covariance of the IPC with the IPC, right? So we get the same results. It's now the variance of the sample for asset. Use the function var for the sample, the variance of the sample,
This what?
var and dot s for the sample. Just out of curiosity, we don't really need it, but I want to know the standard deviation for each stock. I'm going to take the square root of the variance. If we have the same standard deviation, then we have exactly the same information for the other calculation. So Mega have a standard deviation of 23% per year. Hotel 18, wow. City 44, and Posadas 33. Whereas the market as a whole had a standard deviation of 11% per year. So the market as a whole has been a lot less risky than the individual. Yes. Did you get the same result?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so we have the covariance of each stock and the market and the variance of the market. We can estimate beta, don't we? So beta equals the covariance of the stock and the market divided by the variance of the market. It's not sale, right? Just to prove that by definition, the beta of the market is 1, right?
All the results are equal to me, let's say 1.
Yeah, because I did not calculate the variance first. I just did it to show you that I should give 1. Probably you have 0 there or 1 first.
Ah, okay.
So what can you say? What can you say when you see the estimation of data for each company?
Results are similar.
No, they are not.
There's a beauty.
We see City Express in the next. Just for out of curiosity, let's plot scatter plot graph. Just plot over time the returns, the unit returns for the market, the IPC, and City Express. Yes. So let's going to insert a scatter plot graph. I like this one. Choose the information. So it's going to be this one. I'm not going to be here just to see it. Wait. The dates. We're going to look at a graph with this information. There, scatter plot. What is the interpretation of a negative beta?
And it moves against.
Contrary to the market, right? And if we have a beta very close to 1 to -1, what should we expect?
It's almost completely.
A mirror in the opposite side, right? The IPC increases, City Express decreases. The IPC increases, decreases, right? A negative beta.
Sure.
Yes.
And why reduction? Like the indirect relationship.
What type of people does City Express usually receive as clients? Do you have an idea?
Only conditions.
Business people. Do they travel because of the movements in the interest rates in the economy or the growth of the economy? Do they follow a pattern according to what happens in the economy to travel? Or do they have scheduled visits to their clients in different cities in the country? Usually they have scheduled visits. I have to go every 2 months. I have to go every 3 weeks. I have my program for the whole year. So it may be one of the reasons. People who stay in those types of hotels make their decisions, spend, following situations, conditions that do not follow the market. They do not stay in City Express because they are on holiday. So they don't go more frequently in the summer or in holidays. They have a program. The company has already scheduled meetings with the clients. They are usually salespeople, right? They go for one night and leave the other for the other day. So they're running. Maybe that is the reason. Interesting to know, because if you want to invest in a company that does not follow the market, when the market is falling, and you have a headache. You have an investment that can provide you profit, whereas the market is losing. So it's important to identify those investments, those companies, those sectors. So in the same industry, we have 4 companies that behave quite differently. You notice? CP is completely opposite to the market, or has been the past 8 years. This mega resort has basically not much relationship with the market, right? And posadas and hotel probably have a business that is more closely related to one each other, right? And they have a very close market risk, 0.65, 0.57. Okay. So the more information you have, the more analysis you give to your information, the more you understand the industry, the more you understand what's going on, the better decision we can make. Okay, so far so good?
Yeah.
Did we get the same values for betas? Okay. Let's now run the reward. Yeah.
I have a question about, like, if we are doing this like more professionally, which should be spent yearly completion? Is calculation. I really like here, or it's.
We use 8. We would use at least 5, yes. Sometimes we think 10 is too much because so many things have happened in 10 years. And probably 10 years do not reflect the more recent trends. So 5 years would be fine. But for example, if you're thinking of short-term investments, probably we would use monthly returns and we would use 2 years of information on. So it depends on what we are going to do with this information. Are we going to estimate betas because we're going to estimate what for value in a company? Or we're going to estimate betas because we want to make decisions for portfolio investments. So it depends on what is my goal, right? So for long term, I would say 5 years, depending on the stability of the economy, 10 years, sometimes we can do it. For shorter term investments, 2 years, monthly or weekly, even weekly observations. The thing is that data changes. So let's choose the last 5 years of information. So redo the data, redo the analysis for 5 years only. We use 8. So recalculate data for years, what would that be? 19? No. Great. Oh. Did I use only 18? No, right? 2015. Right? So let's do it now for years 2019 to 22. For 4 years, half of the sample. For example, the data for years 2018 and 2022 will be the cover. You don't have to do it separately now that we know how to do it. The covariance of both between mega 4 years. Mega and the bracket divided by the variance of the model. Let's see if you get my solutions.
It's
Yeah. Assuming you get the same results, what can you say? So this is the 8-year period beta, and this is the 4-year period beta. What can we say? First, beta is dynamic. It changes. Depending on the time period I choose, I'm gonna get a different answer. I'm gonna get a different number. Look, for example, City Express. What can you say? What can you conclude by looking at the betas of the 2 different periods for City Express? What can you conclude?
more chances.
In the recent past, the share of the company has become riskier because it's twice as risky as the market. In the whole period, it is as risky as the market in the opposite side, the opposite direction. But in the most recent past, in the past 4 years, that relationship has been the double. So twice the risky as the market in the opposite direction. But how about hotel? A stable company. Basically the same market risk for the past years, 8 years or 4 years. So you can start finding stories for your companies. You can start building stories of your companies. Okay? So betas are dynamic. They change over time. What do I do? Be consistent. Just be consistent. If you are going to analyze a 10-year beta for seed mega resort, make sure you analyze exactly the same period for any other share. Do not mix periods. Do not mix periods. Do not mix methods of estimation. Be consistent. Be consistent. That's the only way you can make any conclusion. Otherwise, you will be concluding from the differences in your methodologies, not differences in the behavior of the companies. Okay? Is that clear? Is that the point? Beta is a dynamic measure of market risk. So let's go back to the 8 period of time. Now let's get betas by regression. Yes?
Still the formula for beta, yeah.
I hope I didn't get it wrong. There's the covariance between the assets and the market for the past 4 years. Yes? All right. So I know you know how to use R and you know how to use the Stata for running your knowledge regressions. But let's do it in Excel today. So what I'm going to regress the return on the stock versus the market return. Okay?
Sure, I think you only use 4 units.
For the last better, yes. For this one, yes. Yes, 4 years, good. For this one, yes.
I thought it was for 5 years.
I changed it to the last time.
2022,
I don't think,
it's from 2018 to 2022.
that's right. No, 2019, sorry. I think 2021, 22. Okay. Right?
Yes.
Okay. There is a third method to estimate betas in Excel. Okay, let me show you first the betas before doing the regression. So we agree that beta is the coefficient of the independent variable in this linear regression, right? So we regress the return on the asset versus the return on the market. We assume a linear relationship, and the coefficient beta is the slope of the line, right? Of the straight line. Do we agree? Yes? Okay. So if we look for the slope of this straight line, then we find that Excel has a function which is called pendiente slope. So it is in the formulas. Is in the statistics, you cannot see it. In the statistic functions, look for pendiente. And then you have to provide the time series for the y values. So the independent variable, and the time series for the x values, which is the independent part. Okay, so let's regress the returns for sigma result for the whole period. Over the market. Notice this is exactly the same result. Where? Yes? Did you get it? So we do the same for the other assets, just make sure you fix the cell for the market return. This is exactly the same, isn't it?
Yes.
No, it's proved by estimating betas using the covariance and the variance functions for the samples, because we are using samples. It matches the slope of a linear regression between the assets and the market. Right? Was fast. So the third one is by regression, okay? The gain that we obtain by regressing the time series is that we get some other statistics, like for example, R squared. That is important sometimes. So, datos, analysis de datos, just above solver. You have it, this tool. Analysis de datos. Look for the regresión. Right? Click on there. Now, we need to provide the second information. A dependent variable and independent variable time series. So let's start with Megan. Are you following me? Am I too fast?
Yes.
Yes, you are following me? Or yes? Can I choose a new spreadsheet, because otherwise it gets too. I think I'm not going to use the residuals. I'm going to use right, so it's okay. There it is.
Wow.
The work is better here.
Yes, at the bottom.
It is a coefficient of the x variable, right? This one. Would you agree? Yes, is it the same?
No, can.
The same value? 0.06164. 0.06164. Right, did you get it?
Yes.
Yes.
The only problem with the regression analysis in Excel is that we have to run one analysis, one regression for every asset, but it takes one, well, less than 1 minute, right? Let's do another one, just a second. So it will be the same. So datos, análisis de datos, regresión. I'm gonna choose now. This is the next one to get. L. Because we are always regressing against the market, then we don't have to input that information. Every time we just have to change the asset. Let's see. 0.6541. I think so. 0.6541. Yeah. Okay. So we can do for every asset, but we will get the same result. That's the same result. Did you manage to get it? Yes. Of course, 8 observations seem to be too few for a regression analysis, isn't it? That's why if we run a regression analysis, we would normally use monthly observations. But with monthly observations, we will get a different value for them. You know what happens? Usually, when we use monthly time series, the volatility is lower than when we use yearly series, simply because the change from month to month is usually lower than the change from year to year. So just by construction, a monthly time series would be less risky than a yearly time series. That's something that we need to understand. Okay? Because depending on the decisions we make when we build the database, we are already influencing the results. But we need to know this. We need to know what we are doing to the information when we make decisions in the design of the database. So what I normally do is I run both month and year, and I look at the differences and I find the explanation. So when I'm going to present something, someone is going to ask, why didn't you do this? Then I have the answer. That's what we have to do. There will always be someone. Why didn't you do this? Why did you do what? But you have to have all the answers. So if you come and present something for an hour, probably there was hundreds of hours of work that you are prepared to present, prepared to answer more than present. Preparing to present doesn't take that long, but to be prepared to answer the questions, that takes a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of analysis. Okay, and trust me, there will always be someone in the audience who wants to hit you. Always, always. So be prepared for that. Be prepared. Okay. Questions so far?
Which was more risky, the year only?
Usually the year. Sure. So if you estimate standard deviation using monthly observations, and then you annualize that standard deviation, that will normally be lower than if you run directly the standard deviation with annual observations. This is something I haven't told you, probably it's not part of our class, but it is important to know because you will use it, you will use it a lot. As I said before, if I want to analyze years on a yearly basis, I will only have 8 observations, and that is not enough to allow me to grasp the variability of the time series. So what do we do? Also, the number of observations is just too small, right? To be taken seriously. So we use monthly observations. So we get a standard deviation using monthly observations. But the market works on an annual basis. So we always want to hear all the indicators on annual basis. So we will be asked for the annual risk. To transform the monthly standard deviation to an annual estimated, because this is an estimation, an estimated annual standard deviation, you multiply the monthly standard deviation times the square root of 12. Why? Because 12 is the number of periods in a year, is the number of monthly periods in a year. If you want to estimate the annual risk of a share using a time series of daily prices, which is something you will do. If you work in the investment industry, that's what you will do. You will calculate daily returns. You work with daily returns. So the daily standard deviation will be multiplied by 252. Why? Because in average, we have 252 working days in a calendar year. And equity only works for business days. Debt works all year long. Debt securities generate interest all year long. Holidays, Christmas, Saturdays, weekends, all year long. But equity does not yield return on weekends nor on holidays. So we only have 252 days to get returns in equity. So we have a harder time to yield returns for shareholders if they bought shares. Okay, so this is what you will do. This is what the market does. Okay, and if we run this calculation and we compare this annualized standard deviation with a standard deviation obtained from annual observations, they would be different. And usually the annualized standard deviation obtained from monthly observations will be lower than the annual standard deviation obtained from annual observations. And that's something we need to understand, because then our client will ask us, what do I do? Does this comply to the regulation? It depends on how you calculate it. So you can comply with the regulation if you know this and you know how to move, the threads. You know how to make the calculations. That's why it is very important in your field, the ethical information. Because by knowing all these things, you can manipulate the information. And it appears you are fulfilling the regulation. So you are fulfilling the law, but you may not be. And if the people the readers of the information do not know this, you may be deceiving them. Nos engañamos. So if we know all these things, we can deceive the market. So financial institutions who are experts in this knowledge can deceive the market. You understand what I'm saying? And if they can deceive the authorities, the regulators, they can deceive the clients, which is even worse. Right? Because the wealth is not for the regulators. The money they are managing is not from the authority, it's from the workers. You understand what I'm saying? So you are going to work in a field that requires lots and lots and lots of ethics. Okay. All right. Questions? Oh, we just finished the class. Yes. So what did we do today? As a summary. superficially probably, but we try to give you a grasp, an idea of how to find a sample of comparable companies. What types of indicators we should look at as a minimum to find that sample of comparable companies. Once we get the comparable companies, we will estimate betas. Okay. Using any of the three methods we learned today, the equation, using variances and covariances, the slopes function of Excel, or doing a linear regression. We just prove it. The result is exactly the same. Using the correct information, using the correct methodology, right? We get exactly the same result. What would the next step be? To make an average of the four betas. A weighted average based on usually market value of equity. Okay. Right? The next week, we will learn how to deleverage these betas. Because before making averages, we have to delever betas, then we make the average, and then we re-lever it to make another average. But that we will learn next week. Questions, comments? So far, so good? Great. Have a nice weekend. See you Monday. Does anyone need my file, or can I just use this?
Can you send it?
Upload it to this? Welcome. See you next week. Ana Lucia, bye.